The war had already been lost before humanity even knew it had begun. The enemy fleets arrived like storms, leaving no time for resistance or hope. Humanity was trapped in a war that it could not win. Their weapons were outdated, their tech obsolete, and yet they refused to surrender. Commander Caitlin Ross was one of the last officers standing at the front lines of Earth's defense. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's soldiers fought with everything they had nothing else left to give but their will to survive. The planet's forces were scattered across the colonies, unable to form a unified defense against the invaders. Each battle a slaughter as alien ships with advanced weaponry tore through the human defenses. It seemed like nothing could turn the tide of war. The humans were fighting with knives and swords against tanks and guns. Yet fate had other plans. It was during a reconnaissance mission to one of Earth's outer colonies that Ross and her team found the junkyard, a forgotten graveyard of old war machines from a previous conflict. The tech was ancient, battered, and half destroyed, but to the engineers and soldiers who scoured the rusted remains, it held something more than just scraps. There was something about the tech that spoke to them, something that humanity could build upon with their own hands. The wreckage of broken drones, mech suits, abandoned artillery, and outmoded robots, each piece of discarded tech held a potential no one had dared to consider. In the dim light of the junkyard, amidst the ruins, a team of engineers and soldiers began to work. The wreckage of the past was slowly transformed into something new, something powerful. They welded pieces together, rewired systems, and adapted alien components into the designs without knowing it. They were making history. The first creation to rise from the junkyard was an armored mesh unit built from a mix of human and alien tech. It was an imperfect machine, a combination of scrap and invention, but it was humanity's first true weapon capable of standing on the battlefield once again. Commander Ross was the first to pilot the prototype. She climbed into the cockpit with a sense of urgency. This mech was their last hope. If it failed, humanity was done for. But as soon as the systems powered up, she felt the raw energy surge through her fingertips. The mech's movements were jerky at first, but with every adjustment it began to respond more fluidly. On the battlefield, for the first time in years, the humans had a weapon that could fight back. The enemy fleet had underestimated them, dismissing the mech as nothing more than junk. But when the first battle began, it became clear that their mistake had been fatal. The mech tore through the alien forces, using its unconventional tactics and rapid-fire weapons to disable and destroy enemy units at an alarming rate. It was nothing like the battles the aliens had fought before. Humanity's junk was a surprise they hadn't seen coming. Commander Ross and her team fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, pushing back the invaders inch by inch. And just like that, the impossible happened. Humanity won its first victory, not with superior tech or overwhelming force, but with ingenuity and the willingness to turn scraps into weapons of war. The first victory was more than a fluke. It was proof that humanity had something the alien forces could not understand: adaptability. The alien fleet had underestimated Earth's ability to innovate. They had dismissed the battle as nothing more than an anomaly, but that anomaly was quickly becoming a threat. Commander Ross stood in the war room, her eyes scanning the holographic map of the galaxy. She could see the alien fleets regrouping. They were not foolish enough to make the same mistake again. Their next attack would be different. They would bring their most powerful weapons to bear. But humanity was not backing down. They had tasted victory, and the taste was sweet. It fueled them in ways no one could have predicted. Earth's engineers worked around the clock, their minds buzzing with possibilities. The first scrap mechs had been a success, but they were only the beginning. In secret labs scattered across the planet, they began to build more advanced models. Each new mech was stronger, faster, and more versatile than the last. The Titan one was the first of these advanced mechs. It had the ability to adapt to any combat situation in real time. The mech's AI could learn from the enemy's tactics and adjust its strategy mid-battle. Ross knew this was their ticket to turning the tide. She climbed into the cockpit of Titan 1, with the familiar hum of the systems powering up around her. She felt a surge of confidence. The tech was untested, but she trusted in the work of her team and in the unyielding spirit of humanity. The next skirmish with the aliens came sooner than expected. The Titan 1 was deployed on the front lines, and humanity's forces met the alien assault head on. The first moments where tense Ross had only limited experience with the new tech, but as soon as the battle started she realized just how much of a difference it made. Titan 1 moved with grace and power, its weapons firing with pinpoint accuracy, its armor withstood blows that would have crippled a standard mech. Ross could feel the machine learning alongside her every move, its eye observing the battlefield and adapting its tactics to outmaneuver the aliens. It was like nothing the alien forces had seen before. They launched their attacks expecting to overwhelm the humans, as they had done countless times before. But Titan 1 was a different beast. It anticipated their movements, countered their strategies, and struck back with a force that left the invaders reeling. As the battle raged on, Ross felt something she had not felt in a long time, hope. The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the war began, humanity had a real chance of winning, and with Titan 1 leading the charge, the aliens could not keep up. The enemy forces scrambled to regroup, but it was too late. Titan 1 had already disrupted their formation, and humanity's forces were now closing in with surgical precision. The aliens fought back, but their attacks were now disjointed and ineffective. By the time the battle ended, humanity stood victorious once again, but this time it was no accident. It was a statement. The alien forces had learned that underestimating humanity's ability to adapt was their greatest mistake. The galactic battlefield would never be the same again. Humanity was no longer just a nuisance, they were a force to be reckoned with. After the victory with Titan 1, the alien forces were no longer dismissing humanity as an insignificant threat. In fact, their commanders were terrified by the unexpected power of the Scrap Legion. The once laughingstock of the galaxy had become a serious player in the war. Humanity's newfound strength wasn't just in their tech, it was in their tactics. Their ability to think outside the box was their greatest weapon. While the alien fleets relied on conventional strategies, humanity adapted and improvised, turning every battlefield into a game of cat and mouse. The next major conflict came on the planet Damaris, a vital staging ground for the alien fleets. It had to be captured if the humans were to have any chance of winning the war. The battle was set to be one of the bloodiest yet. The alien forces had brought their full might to bear. But humanity was ready. Their mechs now included advanced systems that allowed them to hack into enemy tech and turn it against them. The Phoenix Mech series was deployed for the first time. These new machines were not only powerful in combat, but could also regenerate themselves using the energy from fallen foes. As humanity's forces moved into position, Ross surveyed the battlefield from her command ship. She knew this would be their toughest fight yet, but her confidence in the Scrap Legion was unwavering. She had seen firsthand what they were capable of, and she trusted them to deliver when it mattered most. The battle began with a deafening roar as the alien forces descended from the sky, their massive ships unleashing a barrage of firepower that shook the ground beneath humanity's feet. But Ross was not concerned. She knew exactly how to counter the alien onslaught. Her strategy was simple and unconventional. She had the Scrap Legion deploy in small squads, scattered across the terrain rather than grouping together. Like the aliens expected, the humans used their surroundings to their advantage, hiding in caves and behind debris, while launching hit-and-run attacks that kept the aliens off balance. The first few hours of combat were brutal. The alien forces quickly realized they were facing something different from the previous encounters. The humans didn't engage in full frontal assaults. They didn't charge headlong into battle. Instead, they took their time, exploiting every weakness and striking where the enemy was most vulnerable. At one point, the Phoenix mechs used their ability to absorb enemy energy to disable an alien battleship in a way no one could have anticipated. The Phoenix units circled the ship at high speed, drawing fire, and then using the energy they collected to launch a devastating EMP attack on the alien vessel, disabling its systems and leaving it helpless. The alien commanders were in disarray. They couldn't understand how humanity had adapted so quickly, how they had turned the tables with such limited resources, but it was clear now that the war had changed. By the time the dust settled, humanity had claimed another victory. The alien forces were in retreat, and Damaris was in human hands. Commander Ross stood on the battlefield, overlooking the wreckage of alien ships and destroyed mechs. Her heart pounded with the exhilaration of victory. But she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity's war had only begun, but one thing was certain: they were no longer underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As humanity's victories mounted, the alien races of the Galactic Empire could no longer ignore the growing threat that was Earth. The war had started as a minor conflict in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but it had quickly escalated into a struggle that threatened the very balance of power. In the halls of the Galactic Council, the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy gathered to discuss humanity's rise. The Council had long been the center of galactic diplomacy, but now it was becoming a battleground of its own as different factions argued fiercely over the best course of action. The Tharxians, a race of ancient and highly intelligent beings, were the first to speak, their voices calm and calculating. They were the architects of the galactic order, and they viewed humanity's rise as a direct challenge to their authority. They had seen Earth's innovative combat tactics firsthand, and they knew humanity could no longer be dismissed as insignificant. The Tharxians proposed an immediate and decisive strike against Earth's forces to wipe them out before humanity could become a true threat. They argued that Earth's ability to adapt so quickly and unpredictably was too dangerous to leave unchecked. But not all the species agreed. The Elverans, an advanced race of peaceful diplomats, believed humanity's resourcefulness could be harnessed for the benefit of the galaxy. They saw an opportunity to form an alliance with Earth to create a new balance of power, one that could benefit both sides. The debate raged on for hours, and yet the Council remained divided. The Tharxians pushed for an all-out assault on humanity, while others argued that an alliance could bring peace and stability to the galaxy. Commander Ross was called before the Council. Her presence was requested not as a representative of Earth's government, but as the leader of the Scrap Legion, the galaxy's most feared and unpredictable fighting force. Her reputation had spread far and wide, and now she stood before the galaxy's most powerful leaders, awaiting their judgment. She knew what they wanted. They wanted her to submit to their will. They wanted humanity to kneel before the Council and accept whatever terms they deemed appropriate, but Ross was not one to bow to anyone. When the Tharxian leader addressed her with a condescending tone, asking if she would consider a peaceful resolution, Ross simply shook her head. "We did not come this far to kneel before anyone," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Humanity's rise is not a fluke. It is a testament to what we are capable of when we are pushed to the edge. We will fight for our future, and we will do it on our terms, not yours." Her words sent ripples through the council room. The Tharxian leader's expression darkened, but there was no denying the weight of Ross's conviction. The room was silent for a long moment before another voice broke the tension. It was the Elveran ambassador who spoke this time, offering a compromise. "Perhaps there is another way, a path to peace that allows humanity to remain independent while working with the galaxy's civilizations toward mutual benefit." The council fell into murmurs of agreement. The Tharxians' fury was palpable, but the Elverans made their case that humanity's ingenuity could be a key to future prosperity. But Ross knew that even with the council's internal divisions, peace was not yet an option. The war would continue. The question was not whether they would fight, but when. As she left the council chamber, Ross reflected on what had just transpired. Humanity had made a mark on the galaxy, one that could not be ignored. But the real test was yet to come. The Tharxians would not rest until Earth was destroyed, and they would stop at nothing to see it happen. Humanity's victory on the battlefield had only just begun. The real war was about to unfold. Humanity's victory at the Galactic Council had been a small one, but a victory nonetheless. The Tharxians were still plotting their next move, and the rest of the galaxy was watching closely. But Commander Ross knew that the only way to ensure Earth's survival was to keep pushing forward. The Scrap Legion had grown since its humble beginnings. The mechs, built from salvaged technology, had been evolving rapidly. With each battle, the human engineers and soldiers had learned from their victories and failures alike, refining their designs and improving their tech at a pace that the galaxy had never seen before. What had started as clunky and unpredictable machines was now an army of sleek and deadly war machines, each one tailored for a specific combat role. But the true game changer had arrived. The Phoenix Mech series was the next step in humanity's evolution on the battlefield. The Phoenix mechs were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were equipped with self-repairing technology that allowed them to regenerate in the heat of battle, using the energy from fallen enemies to power their systems. The more damage they took, the more deadly they became. They were living weapons in every sense of the word. Ross stood over the latest prototype, a towering behemoth of metal and power. She could feel the hum of the mech systems. Even before stepping inside the cockpit, she had watched these mechs evolve from the scrap pile to something much more than that. They were the future of humanity's defense and offense alike. Her team had worked tirelessly to perfect the Phoenix mech series, but even they were in awe of what they had created. They had taken the very essence of what made humanity resilient and channeled it into a weapon that was unstoppable on the battlefield. With the Phoenix mechs now part of the Scrap Legion, humanity had the means to strike at the heart of the alien empire, but Ross knew they couldn't afford to wait for the Tharxians to make the next move. They had to take the fight to the enemy and show the galaxy that humanity's rise was not a fleeting moment but a new era. The next battle was set to take place on the planet Xeros, a key Tharxian stronghold located deep in enemy territory. It was heavily fortified, and the alien forces stationed there were some of the most elite warriors in the galaxy. But Ross was not intimidated. She knew that humanity's greatest strength was their unpredictability, their ability to outthink and outmaneuver their enemies. The battle plan was simple. They would infiltrate the planet's atmosphere under the cover of darkness, using stealth technology to hit close to the Tharxian stronghold. Once they were in position, they would unleash the Phoenix mechs in a series of surprise strikes designed to cripple the Tharxian defenses. The first waves of Phoenix mechs dropped onto Xeros like ghosts, their movements silent and precise. They struck from every angle, using the element of surprise to tear through the alien fortifications. The Tharxian soldiers were caught off guard, unable to respond quickly enough as humanity's mechs tore through their defenses with ruthless efficiency. What followed was chaos. The Tharxians attempted to regroup, but the Phoenix mechs were everywhere. Each strike from the enemy only made humanity's machines stronger. The Tharxian forces could not adapt fast enough to the sheer ferocity and speed with which the Scrap Legion attacked. In the heart of the battle, Ross led her team into the Tharxian command center, where the final showdown would take place. As they fought their way through the stronghold, they faced the Tharxian elite guards trained in combat for centuries, but even they were no match for the relentless power of humanity's new tech. When the battle finally ended, the Tharxians were forced to retreat and Xeros was in human hands. It was another monumental victory for Earth, but it was clear now that the Tharxians would not stop until humanity was crushed. Ross stared at the horizon of the planet, knowing that the war was far from over, but for the first time, she felt a true sense of hope. Humanity's evolution was happening right before her eyes, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The victory on Xeros had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer just a nuisance or a passing threat. They had defeated one of the most formidable forces in the alien empire, and their rise was unstoppable. The Tharxians had been humiliated. Their most elite warriors had been forced to retreat from a battle they believed was already won. But the Tharxians were not a race that took defeat lightly. They had been the dominant power in the galaxy for millennia, and their pride would not allow them to be so easily pushed aside. The time for diplomacy had passed, and now it was war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. In the heart of the Tharxian command structure, the ruling council convened to discuss their next move. The anger was palpable as they watched the reports flooding in detailing humanity's progress. The Phoenix mechs had proven to be an unexpected nightmare for their forces, and the humans were only growing stronger with each passing day. Tharxian Lord Korath, the supreme leader of their military forces, slammed his fist down on the table. He was a towering figure with scales that shimmered in the dim light of the war room. His eyes burned with the desire for vengeance. "They will pay for this insult," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "Prepare the fleet. We will crush Earth and its pathetic scrap machines once and for all." But Korath was not foolish. He knew that an all-out assault on Earth would not be easy. Humanity had proven they could adapt and counter even the most advanced technology. So he devised a new strategy, one that would strike at the heart of humanity's power and tear apart their fragile alliance of scrap mechs. The Tharxians would not launch a direct assault on Earth. Instead, they would launch a series of devastating surprise attacks on Earth's colonies and supply lines scattered across the galaxy. Their goal was simple: destroy the resources that had made humanity's rise possible and break their morale. The Tharxian fleets set out with surgical precision, targeting the most critical human outposts. One by one, the colonies fell, the stations were wiped out, and humanity's supply chains were left in shambles. Ross knew that Earth's colonies had been targeted, but she did not know just how severe the damage had been until the reports started flooding in. The Tharxians had hit them hard. The colonies were burning, their resources were depleted, and their morale was shaken. The Scrap Legion was spread thin, trying to defend multiple fronts, and humanity's momentum began to stall. But Commander Ross was not one to give up. She had led her people through worse, and she would do it again. She knew that in times of crisis, the key to survival was unity. Humanity had to pull together or risk losing everything. Ross called for a summit of Earth's leaders. Every faction, every colony, every force within the Scrap Legion gathered under her command. They would not retreat, they would not surrender, they would fight, and they would rebuild. In the war room, Ross stood before the holographic map of the galaxy, her eyes locked on the dark spots where humanity had suffered the most losses. But instead of despair, she felt something else, a fierce determination. Each blow they strike only makes us stronger, she said, her voice steady and unwavering. We will not falter, we will adapt just as we always have. This war is far from over. Her words sparked something within the room, and for the first time since the Tharxian offensive, humanity's leaders began to rally together. Plans were drawn up, new mechs were developed, new strategies were devised, but most importantly, new hope was born from the ashes of their fallen colonies. Ross knew that the Tharxians had underestimated humanity before, and they would do it again, because what they didn't understand was that humanity did not need the most advanced tech to win this war. They had something far more powerful, a will that could not be broken. And in that moment, she made a promise to her people. They would not only survive, they would rise again. And when they did, the galaxy would tremble at their feet. The galaxy had never seen a people rise from the ashes as quickly as humanity had done in the wake of the Tharxian offensive. The attacks on Earth's colonies had been devastating, but humanity's resolve had only grown stronger with each blow they had suffered. The Scrap Legion was now united in purpose, and their leaders were more determined than ever to see their world survive. Commander Ross knew that the Tharxians had miscalculated. They had assumed that by crippling humanity's colonies and cutting off their resources, they would break their spirit. But what they had failed to understand was that humanity had always been at its best, when cornered, when there was nowhere left to run and nothing left to lose. The next phase of humanity's strategy was clear. They would strike back with everything they had. They would not wait for the Tharxians to come to them. They would take the war to the heart of the Tharxian Empire itself. The Scrap Legion's newest mechs were more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their engineers had worked tirelessly in secret to create a new generation of war machines. The Vanguard mechs were equipped with hyper-advanced shielding and devastating new weapons designed to tear through even the toughest enemy defenses. With these new mechs, humanity had an edge they had never known before. But Ross knew that technology alone would not win the war. It was the unity and determination of her people that would tip the scales. They would need to fight smarter and harder than ever before if they hoped to survive. The first target was the Tharxian capital planet Zolfor, the heart of their empire, and the seat of their power. Humanity's fleet gathered in the void of space, preparing for the most ambitious strike of the war. The Vanguard mechs would be deployed in full force alongside an entire armada of human ships. The goal was simple: break through the Tharxian defenses and strike directly at the heart of their empire. The journey to Zolfor was long and perilous, but humanity's forces moved with precision, every step calculated to avoid detection and maximize their chances of success. They knew that the Tharxians would have a massive fleet guarding their capital, and they could not afford to fail. As they approached Zalthor, the Tharxian defense fleet appeared in the distance, a wall of ships larger than anything humanity had ever faced. The sight was intimidating, but Ross was undeterred. Her crew was ready. They had trained for this moment for years. The battle began with a series of skirmishes at the edges of the Tharxian fleet. Humanity's ships moved swiftly, dodging incoming fire and launching calculated strikes against the alien vessels. It was a dance of destruction, as both sides exchanged devastating blows in the void of space. And then the Vanguard mechs deployed. Humanity's ground forces hit the surface of Zalthor like a storm. The mechs moved with terrifying speed and power, their weapons cutting through the Tharxian defenses with ease. The Tharxian soldiers on the ground were caught off guard, their fortified positions crumbling under the weight of humanity's assault. Ross led the charge once again. Her mech tore through enemy lines as if they were paper. The Vanguard mechs moved in perfect formation, striking from multiple directions and coordinating their attacks in ways the Tharxians had never seen before, their advanced weapons obliterating anything in their path. The Tharxians scrambled to regroup, but it was too late. Humanity's forces had broken through their lines and were now pushing toward the heart of their capital city. The Tharxian command center was in sight, and Ross knew this was their chance to deliver a devastating blow to the enemy. But as humanity closed in on their target, something unexpected happened. A signal came through from the Tharxian fleet, a message from Lord Korith himself, his voice filled with fury and rage as he spoke. "You think you can defeat us, you think you can win this war, but you are nothing compared to the might of the Tharxian Empire. We will crush you all." Ross stood in her mech's cockpit, staring at the incoming transmission, and smiled. This was it. Humanity had proven themselves to be a force that could not be ignored, and now the Tharxians were about to learn just how wrong they were. The battle for Zalthor was far from over, but humanity had already delivered a message to the galaxy. They would not be defeated, and the Tharxians would soon learn that their reign was coming to an end. The war had reached its apex. The Tharxians were reeling from humanity's unexpected strength and resolve. Their once impenetrable empire now stood on the brink of collapse. Zalthor was in chaos, and Commander Ross could feel the shifting tides of the galaxy as humanity's power surged forward. The final battle for Zalthor was a cataclysmic clash of wills and machines. Humanity's Vanguard mechs had torn through the Tharxian defenses with relentless precision, and now the Scrap Legion was inside the heart of the Tharxian capital city. Every step they took shook the foundations of the empire. Ross led the charge into the Tharxian command center, the massive structure looming ahead. The air was thick with tension as the human forces fought their way through the alien stronghold. The Tharxian soldiers were desperate now, throwing everything they had at humanity's forces, but it was clear their numbers and their resolve were no match for the might of the Scrap Legion. Inside the command center, Lord Korith stood before a massive holographic map, his face twisted in anger and disbelief. Humanity had broken through every obstacle he had placed in their path, and now he was facing the inevitable. His empire was crumbling before his eyes. "You are a fool," Korith. Ross's voice cut through the chaos as she stepped into the command center, her mech towering over the Tharxian leader. "You should have learned long ago that humanity is not like the other species in this galaxy. We will never bow down, we will always fight." Korith sneered, his massive form radiating fury. "You think you've won. The galaxy will never accept you. Your victory will be short-lived." But Ross's eyes burned with unwavering confidence. The galaxy has already begun to change, and we're just getting started. With a single command, the Vanguard mechs moved in unison. The last remaining Tharxian defenses crumbled under the force of humanity's assault. The command center's walls shuddered as the final blows were struck. The Tharxian fleet was in disarray, their command structure shattered. In the chaos, Ross made her way to Korith, standing face to face with the Tharxian lord. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Both the fate of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. "Your empire is done, Korith," Ross said firmly. "You can either surrender or face the consequences of your arrogance." Korith stood still for a moment, his gaze cold and calculating. But even he knew it was over. His empire had been undone by the very species they had underestimated for so long. With a final bitter growl, Korith dropped his weapon and knelt before Ross. Humanity had proven its worth in the most unforgiving of ways, and now the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge it. The galaxy's power dynamics began to shift as news of humanity's victory spread across the stars. Species that had once dismissed them as insignificant now saw them as a rising force to be reckoned with. Alliances were formed, and new treaties were signed. Humanity was no longer a minor player in the galactic theater, but a power that commanded respect. Commander Ross stood on the steps of the fallen Tharxian command center, looking out over the landscape of Zolthor. As the dust began to settle, she felt the weight of the journey's end, but also the excitement of what was to come. Humanity had proven that they could not only survive, but thrive in a galaxy that sought to crush them. The Scrap Legion had changed the course of history. They had defeated the Tharxian Empire, and now the stars were theirs to claim. As Ross looked toward the future, she knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had won the war, but the true challenge lay in what came next, building a new future where Earth and its allies could live in peace and prosperity. And so humanity's legacy was forged in the fires of battle, and from the ashes of war, a new era was born.